Hello YouTube, Ninja Midget here. This is going to be a complete disassembly of the Marlin Glenfield Model 60. Very good old rifle. This is the one that has built-in subliminal messaging. Got it right here. You will want to kill the squaws. Bang, bang, bang. Anyway, this really comes down easy. First thing you want to do, take off this front screw here. It's your main screw that goes directly up into the stock, or into the upper rather. And you want to take off this back screw here. The back screw in the trigger guard, because that also goes up into the receiver. And take that off. Until it comes out. There you go. Set the stock aside for now. Now, this is an older model. This is one that was manufactured in 1977, so this is a 40-year-old gun now. And these have a lot of different variations. They've been doing updates and upgrades to this particular model for years and years. It went from a mediocre gun that was kind of okay to a really nicely designed, well-functioning gun. Now, on this one, on these older models, what you have is you have two screws up front here in the front of this fire group. You take those out. Then now on the back, this is deceptive. This is not actually two screws. It's actually one screw that's actually a threaded insert. It's a nut, and then the other screw just threads into it, and I'll show you that when I get that out here. And this wants to pop up on you. So see, these guys, just thread them together for safekeeping. Now in some of the newer models, there's just pins here and a slot that this slides under, and then a pin, a plastic pin that goes in here. But that's that, and then whoops, helps if you take your buffer tube out, or at least take it out a little bit. So go ahead and get this out. There's your fire group with your feed throat and your hammer and your disconnector, and then your sears down here underneath the hammer. Now to take your bolt out, what you want to do is you're going to slide it out part way and up a little bit. Put your finger under here, just lift it so that you can get the charging handle out. Now as you lift this up and out, you want to make sure that you're putting some tension on this spring down here so that it doesn't jump out on you, because it can easily jump out and kink up on you, and you can screw up your spring. So there's your bolt, there's your spring with your little rod that goes in there. Okay, that's the basic disassembly. Now we'll get down to the nuts and bolts of it. Okay, now it's really easy to take your bolt apart. You're just gonna, there's two pins here, and they hold in both sides of the extractor. And you want to note how these are situated in here. Let me grab my focus. Okay, there we go. So, now, this is your extractor over here. That's your extractor. The one on this side just has kind of a rounded edge on it, and it's really just meant to hold it in place. So it's part of the extraction system, but it really just holds it in place. Okay, now, what we want to do is we want to tap those pins out. So, I believe they come out from either side, but I imagine we'll find out shortly if I'm wrong. Okay, tap it on out. Comes out pretty good, and then they're under a little bit of spring tension, so you're going to want to hold this as we pull that out. There's your spring, and then we're going to go ahead and tap out the other side here. And that comes out pretty easy. And then hold your finger over this, and it comes out just like this. And there's your spring. Now, next we want to go ahead and do our firing pin. And the firing pin is right here. It's held in place by this pin. You want to note that this roller is here on this pin. That's important. That sometimes breaks and needs to be replaced because the gun doesn't function when it's not in. Alright, so we'll just go ahead and push that out, and it's not in there real tight. Let's see here. Hello. Do you want to come out the other way, perhaps? Try that. There it is. Comes out that other way. Sometimes a pin prefers one way over the other. So there you go. Now it's interesting. There's no spring tension in here. And this on the firing pin. It's just it slides freely in there. And here's your firing pin. That comes out. That is your bolt completely disassembled. Okay, onward. Okay, this is the part that houses your disconnector, your feed throat, your carrier and your carrier spring, your hammer, your sear. Your sear is underneath here. So first things we want to do on this is we want to capture that hammer spring back there. So you can see there's a little hole in there. So you go ahead and you grab your handy dandy high tech tool for capturing the hammer, which can be a paper clip, but I think it's more festive if you use an old Christmas ornament hook. This is just what I had laying around. As usual, all the paper clips that were all over the place when I didn't need them were nowhere to be found when I decided I needed something like this. So, well, there you have it. Alright, now, in order to release this, you want to put some pressure on your hammer, and you're going to push your sear. Push your sear. Oh, excuse me, this goes from this side a lot better. Right here. Oops, let me get my finger out of the way. Right there. This is your disconnector. This is your sear right here. So you push on that, hammer comes forward, captures, and this pin here. From there, what you want to do is you can go ahead and pop off your spring from your carrier. Pops out two ways, just like that. Okay, now what we want to do, let me focus this again here. This is going to come apart in this order. Your disconnector, you want that to be on the bottom, like this. Let me turn it around. This is easier to work on this way for me. Okay, so there are a couple C-clips on here. Later models, they don't even use C-clips because this is just all held in place when it's in the action. So if you lose them, they're a pain in the neck to deal with. If you end up losing them, I would say don't even bother putting them back in because it's not even necessary. But after that, you've got all your springs detensioned. So this plate's just going to lift up like this. You gotta wiggle it a little bit, pops right out just like that. Now, what you can do is you can go ahead and you can lift out your feed throat and your carrier, and those come out as a unit. Just come apart like that. And there's your carrier spring. then you can go ahead and take your hammer and hammer spring out. That sear wants to hold on to them. Okay, there's your hammer and your hammer spring. Now you can take and get the spring tension off of your sear by lifting this spring up so it springs forward. You can go ahead and lift that straight out. And there's your sear and your sear spring and your pin. Now this block back here, this comes out, and this can come out. This is your disconnector, but this pin, the spring rather, is, let me get this in focus here. This spring is kind of pressed in here so that you really, if you take it out, it's going to be a pain to get back in. It's also pressed in on the disconnector itself down here. So I just leave it in. If you want, you can take off this big C-clip, pop it out. It's really not necessary. You can clean it and do everything you need to do from here. Unless it's really gunked up, then you can take this out if you want. Now on some other models, this is completely stamped in and you cannot take it out. But this one has the C-clip on it that you can go ahead and take out. So there is your disassembly of your hammer, sear, disconnector, and your feed system. Now on this model, because this has been around for a long time, they've been continually updating and improving this design. This one being built in 1977, this was one of the older designs, and one of the things they suggest you do is get the new feed throat and the carrier spring and a new carrier, because they've done some good updates on this to make sure that it functions a whole lot better than it used to. It is a part that drops in for the most part. Now you can see on here I did have to do some work on this, and the reason is because the bolt is more square on the newer ones. It's more square on these sides. So what I had to do was look at the bolt, look at where it was hitting, because it wouldn't close over this, and I had to use a belt sander to go ahead and take these down, and just keep taking them down, fitting it until it rides over that with no problems. And I believe I had to take this down as well, this post down as well. It was protruding a little bit too much, so it requires some minor fitting, but it's really a worthwhile upgrade. This thing was kind of finicky before. I remember shooting this as a kid because I've had this gun for a while, but after the new feed throat and the carrier and carrier spring, this thing really was performing like a new gun. It just works great. So worthwhile upgrade, very reasonably priced upgrade for you to do. So something to think about if you have one of the older models. It is pretty much drop in with just a little bit of working on it, and it can be done with. You don't need a belt sander. You can do it with a file. You can do it with a Dremel tool, though I would suggest not doing that, because the Dremel tools can put little divots in here and it hogs out more material than you really need it to. Belt sander or a file, I would say. And you don't even really need to polish this up, because it just needs to clear the bolt. It's not contacting anything. So anyway, there's your disassembly of this portion of the gun. If you wanted to disassemble the hammer, obviously you would just take and compress that, pull out your paper clip, and then pull this off. And you want to note that this goes in a specific orientation, and that is so that it can clear your disconnector right down here. So you want to make sure that as you put this back on, you're noting which side goes where, because that needs to clear this disconnector right down here. Okay, so just a word of warning, that make sure that goes on in the right direction, or you will not have functionality there. Alright, and on to the next step. Let's go ahead and work on the trigger. Okay, to take out the trigger guard, you need to undo this screw right here. Screw at the front of the trigger guard. Go ahead and undo that. Oops. Banging the camera. I'm always doing that. let's see here. Sometimes that wants a little pressure on the back because it wants to spin on you in there, because there's just a little round nut that goes in here on this side, so it goes in just like this, and this nut will want to spin on you. So you put a finger in there, hold that nut after you get it loosened, and it'll go ahead and come out on you. Set the stock aside. That's all we need the stock for. And then what we want to do, first thing we want to do is we're going to go ahead and drift out this little pin right here, this little guy right here, and there is a spring in here. It's holding a spring in, so as you drift that out, you want to make sure, be aware that that's going to want to come out on you. You don't want to launch it. Okay, so see if I can find a good position here where it's going to work for me. Seems like that's as good a position as any. Let's see. Doesn't look like it wants to come out on either side particularly, so let's go ahead and just try it on this side. Give it a couple taps. Starts coming out easy enough. Try to cover up that hole. Now we're tapping it out. It's coming out. And there it comes. Okay, now punch is in there. I want to cover up that hole. Pull the punch out. And that is what was holding your detent for your safety. So I'm going to pull that spring on out of there. Now we're going to go ahead and drift out this other smaller pin over here. Does not seem to want to come out. Let's try this other one here. It's been a while since I took this gun apart. Out comes the detent. Okay, so that's coming out. Very good. And out she comes. Okay. Now, gonna have a little bit of spring tension on here, so you want to watch that. I don't want this spring jumping out on us here. Lastly, you've got this other little pivot spring in here. So we're going to want to go ahead and tap that guy out. As I hit the camera again. One of these days I'll get around to not doing that. Alright, and this is knurled on one side. I'm not sure if you can see that. Let me focus it in a little bit. It'll come out both ways, but if you hit a little resistance when you're tapping it on one side, go to the other. See if it'll tap out easier, because that knurl will want to grab as you're going in there. Okay, so out comes our trigger. And then we can just go ahead and grab our safety. Take that apart, and there's your entire trigger group, completely disassembled. And that is the complete disassembly of the Marlin Glenfield Model 60. Thanks for watching.